Why exactly is ADHD harder for women to live with than men? Well, for one, historically, ADHD has been way easier to detect in males than females. And this is because the male presentation of ADHD is way more an external phenomenon, whereas us women tend to internalize our ADHD symptoms. In this video, I am going to break down exactly how ADHD shows up in women, and then I'm going to tell you what I would do knowing everything that I know about ADHD if I received an ADHD diagnosis today. I have ADHD myself, and I work exclusively with ADHD women. If you are a woman late diagnosed with ADHD, or you believe that you have it and you struggle with really big ADHD feelings, low self-confidence, perfectionism, imposter syndrome, or you feel chronically overwhelmed, I want you to know that I'm here to help. This is what I've dedicated my life to. There is a link in the description of this video to get on a free call with me to see how I can support you. I want you to know that you're not alone in this. So as I said, in a nutshell, men are more likely to externalize their ADHD symptoms than women are. And that's why historically so many of us thought, for one, you could grow out of ADHD, as well as ADHD was just a condition for hyper little boys. And let's face it, if you remember any of the ADHD boys that you went to school with, they were probably the class clown. Maybe they were the ones who had that risky behavior, more of that adventurous side to them. I had a cousin who had ADHD. He's unfortunately no longer with us. And he was that stereotypical hyper white little boy that was the life of the party, but also a massive disturbance during school and also in his home life. He was thrill-seeking, he was attention-seeking, he was loud, and he was proud, and it screamed ADHD in every sense of the term that so many of us knew ADHD to be. Us women, however, are far better at internalizing our symptoms, all while not realizing that they were symptoms before we were actually diagnosed. And the reason that so many of us were overlooked in diagnosis in childhood is because anxiety, depression, and overwhelm are all co-occurring conditions of having ADHD. So there were so many of us diagnosed with these things. Even bipolar disorder is commonly misdiagnosed in females who actually have ADHD. And there were so many of us who had this internal knowing that something was off with us, something was wrong with us. Things were harder for us than our peers, but we didn't know why. We just knew that we were struggling. And I think that's the hardest part about being a late diagnosed ADHD person, is feeling completely alone on this island. Specifically if you have friends when you're younger or siblings when you're younger who are neurotypical. The comparison game can feel debilitating. And socially, we tend to present more as that inattentive or daydreamer. A lot of us did really well in school. We did really well in school until there was too much responsibility put on us, and then we might have started dropping the ball. And what does having this inner knowing that you're dropping the ball cause? Anxiety, depression, and crippling overwhelm. So without knowing this, we find ways to cope, and we start masking who we are for fear of feeling rejected or less than when compared to the kids and younger people and even adults who have an easier time than us. Perfectionism and imposter syndrome are forms of masking, and when you're constantly masking, that leads to the risk of falling into ADHD burnout. And I do have a video all about how to manage ADHD burnout linked in the description of this video. There are also a lot of societal expectations that females have that are really archaic, but still very alive and well. Females are supposed to be polite. We're supposed to be quiet. We're supposed to play quietly, act softly, not have this too much energy, because that again kind of stereotypes us into being more of that hyper little boy. And it's not ladylike. And yes, that is very archaic, but it is part of the reason that so many of us mask without knowing it throughout so much of our lives. Now, when it comes to ADHD big feelings, That happens with both males and females, but males tend to externalize their ADHD feelings. It's more acceptable for a guy to be a fighter or for a guy to raise his voice or to get angry than it is for a female. Whereas us as females, we tend to internalize our feelings, and this can lead us to withdrawing or just completely shutting down. And that's why a lot of us feel like we're a fraud in our own life, and we fall into imposter syndrome, perfectionism, and struggle with the feelings of rejection, sensitivity, dysphoria, instead of acting like our male counterparts, which is outwardly showing anger or aggression. And this is why ADHD can really affect a person's sense of self as well as self-esteem. So what would I do today with a brand new ADHD diagnosis, knowing everything that I know now about ADHD? The first thing I would do is learn how ADHD presents in females versus males, and this video is a great starting point for you. There's also a great book called Your Brain Is Not Broken by Tamara Rosier, PhD. She also has ADHD, and she does touch on how ADHD is different in males compared to females. And if you haven't already subscribed to this channel, all of my content is specifically designed for late diagnosed ADHD women. So hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and turn on your notifications so that you don't miss a video from me. The second thing that I would do with a brand new diagnosis is find community. An ADHD community. It can be very validating to know that your own lived experience is not exclusively to you or some kind of moral failing. It's simply a part of your ADHD, and it's really common amongst all of us ADHDers. And the final thing I would do is I would seek out an ADHD therapist or coach. A therapist if you're dealing with trauma from the past, and a coach if you really want to learn how to lean into your brain to thrive. I happen to be a coach that serves late diagnosed ADHD women, and again, a link to book a call with me is in the description of this video. My hope for you is that this video validated your feelings and your experience as an ADHD woman. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week in the next video.